Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Flop Warning Podcast. I'm Josh Bodie alongside Elias Corey and Cole Nobby, and it wasn't the weekend like it was last weekend with four top 10 games, three on Saturday, one on Sunday, but there were still some interesting results from Saturday.
Yeah, Baylor at Kansas. Anytime you play in Allen Fieldhouse in the Big 12, it's going to be a big matchup. And Kansas squeaks by without Kevin McCullar, which has a big thing for them is depth, and not having McCullar and beating a ranked team at home. That's a big win for them.
Yeah, it was a really impressive win. We'll start with that game. A crazy stat that I saw on Twitter, I forgot to write it down, but it's something along the lines of, I think Bill Self has lost at Allen Fieldhouse somewhere around 17 times. Scott Drew, coach of Baylor, lost at Allen Fieldhouse like 16 times. Bill Self is basically unbeatable there. And the ending is what stood out to me. What stood out to you guys in that game?
Yeah, the ending, I agree. I mean, Kansas being a team with championship DNA, you got guys like DeJuan Harris on the team who have been there for years and won a national championship, and you turn the ball over up 3 with, 15 seconds left, and then you give up a wide open 3 when you're up 3 with like 10 seconds left. They got very lucky they missed it, and it's just surprising from a Bill Self-led team, as you alluded to. He's got 20-plus Big 12 championships. They're one seed every single year. That was very surprising for them to fold down the stretch, and it's kind of hinted at the things they've done this year, losing to teams that they definitely shouldn't, and then beating teams at the top of the country. So, yeah, the inconsistency with Kansas is a little alarming going into the tournament.
Oh, yeah, especially with some of the more intangible things that they have going their way. I mean, 7th in effective height right now in the country. They're a tall team, and with that comes experience. They're 19th in the country in D1 experience. So these are guys that shouldn't be making the kind of mistakes that we see them making week to week. Like you mentioned, DeJuan Harris should be one of, and probably is, like, I'm not going to jump the gun and say that DeJuan Harris is underperforming or anything because he's stellar, but shouldn't be making the kind of mistakes that you see him make every single game for Kansas.
Yeah, it was Nick Timberlake that was the standout, like, goof up down the stretch here. The turnover with about 15 seconds left. Baylor then misses a 3 that was very open in the corner. And then Nick Timberlake misses the front end of the one-on-one with 5 seconds left. And then Baylor just marches up the floor. Somehow Kansas lets them get like a very open 3 at the top of the key, miss it. 2 chances for overtime. Baylor missed them both. And Kansas, big win for them. And Cole, you mentioned it without Kevin McCullar as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about one of the best players in the country, right on pace to be Big 12 Player of the Year, really fighting for his teammate with Hunter Dickinson to be Big 12 Player of the Year. And without him to win as many games as they have, as he's been injured, back and forth down the stretch, is impressive. But I worry about Kansas's depth and lack of maturity, with the exception of Harris, Dickinson, McCullar down the stretch in the NCAA tournament.
And now to a non-conference game in February at a campus site as well. Gonzaga at Kentucky at Rupp. I think more teams should play non-conference games in February, and obviously more non-conference games should be on campus sites. But this was a massive, massive win for Gonzaga. Elias, we'll start with you on this one.
I'm going to have to eat my words on some stuff that I said about Gonzaga the last time I was on a couple weeks ago. I just said that Graham Ike wasn't the guy. He had a fantastic game, probably his best since he's been at Gonzaga, going for 23 in Rupp too. In Rupp, that's kind of wild. Of course, who did it? Was it Florida like a week and a half ago? I remember saying Florida was
Florida. You basically called that game the exact score. You were so close. I think it was, if that game didn't go to overtime, you probably would have had it nearly correct. But you did call Florida winning at Rupp.
I had the score right at one point, but I had the matchups the wrong way around. So I had 83-81 Florida. Kentucky was up 83-81, split their free throws, and then obviously Florida hit the 3 to go to overtime. Reed Sheppard continues to impress. Obviously, Kentucky, losing 4 of their last 6 isn't great, especially being, what are they, 2.5 games back? Yeah, that's what the doc says. I don't know why I asked that. Yeah, so I think some of the inexperience that we talked about with their young guards like Wagner and Dillingham is starting to show a little bit, because like Dillingham only had 6, and Gonzaga's a beatable team. Like, we've definitely seen them, a lot of their weaknesses get exposed this season, and of course they're historically solid, but this year Kentucky really should have no problem winning that game. But when you give up, what is that math, 67 points to to 3 players, that's not a recipe for success.
This was Gonzaga's first quad one win of the season. They were definitely on the outside of the NCAA tournament before this game, probably still on the outside of it. Cole, what do you think this win means for Gonzaga? And is this something that they can put on their resume as like a big time caliber win if they don't win the WCC tournament? Or do you think they pretty much still have to win the WCC tournament to get in?
Yeah, it was a great opportunity for them getting a win, not in conference play, because the WCC, you're not going to have a ton of quad one opportunities. But I do think that without winning the WCC tournament, they're going to be out. I mean, this is their first quad one win. There's their first ranked win. They're really just a team who has no bad losses. They have no quad 3 or quad 4 losses, but I mean, they had their chances. They scheduled great out of conference play. They played Purdue. They played UConn. They played San Diego State, who has been ranked for a little bit of the year. And they've lost all of those games. So yeah, I think sitting in the WCC, they're still 2 games back from St. Mary's. I think they get another shot at them, but that's going to be at St. Mary's. That's going to be much harder to win. And so, yeah, I think they're going to have to make at least a championship type run in WCC to get on that bubble. But you never know with how weird the bubble is this year, with how many teams have great wins and terrible losses. You never know with a Gonzaga team who's just been very consistent at who they are all year.
And there could be a lot of bid stealers this year, too. I mean, you got like the Atlantic 10. Dayton's going to be an Dayton will make the tournament. So if they get upset in the A10 tournament, they're out. I'm a bid stealer in the Missouri Valley, possibly, if Indiana State gets in as an at-large. The American Conference, with Florida Atlantic in as an at-large. So the bubble could shrink quite a bit down the stretch this season. One more big game from the weekend: Tennessee at Texas A&M. A&M dominated Tennessee, won by 16 points, and Tennessee stumbles again.
Yeah, this is just another explanation of, besides the top 10 teams just stumbling week after week to teams that they shouldn't lose to. In Tennessee, you lose a road conference game. It's not the end of the world, but you get beat 85-69. Zeke Leroy has 15 points after his great wins over Kentucky, now at Rupp. And now you're a game and a half back in the SEC, a very competitive top of the SEC that, Tennessee's fighting for a 1-2 seed in the tournament. And with losses like this, when everybody else is, making headway like Auburn did against Alabama, it's not going to look good when you're trying to fight for one of those 1-2 seats.
Dude, Tennessee's better, or not Tennessee. Texas A&M's better than people think they are. They're not good. They're probably.
Well, I mean, they're good. They're probably going to be an at-large team. I don't think you can say that an at-large team isn't good.
I don't know, man. There's some bad losses on their record.
They might be a single-digit seed now, though. They're 5-4 in quad one, 500 or above in every quad. Was it on? I don't remember. Was it on the road?
Arkansas was on the road. They lost to Mississippi at home. Lost to Memphis at home. Lost to
Texas A&M is 37 in the net rankings right now.
I don't know. The resume is good enough. They're above 500 in quad one with 5 quad one wins. That should put them safely in the tournament as long as they avoid bad losses from here on out.
Well, maybe they get in. I still think I see a few losses left on their schedule. I think they lose to Alabama. I think there's reason to suspect they lose to Arkansas at home after falling away. I mean, Tennessee and South Carolina, obviously they just beat Tennessee, but they're going to play Tennessee in Tennessee. That's another loss. South Carolina at home, you never know. And then your conference away games, Georgia and Mississippi, could be tough after they already lost to Mississippi at home. I think there's a reasonable chance Texas A&M doesn't make it. They're getting blocked on about 14% of their shots. That is an alarming number. Alarming. That is third worst in the country. Their 3-point percentage, 27th. And like I talked about the last time I was on, your shot making is what's going to take you far in the tournament, and it's what's going to win you streaky games. And they don't make shots. 284th in 2-point percentage, 357th in 3-point percentage. They're not good. What's saving them right now is offensive rebounding. They're number 1 in offensive rebound percentage in the country. Thinking about 43% of their offensive rebounds. How ridiculous is that?
I haven't really watched a whole lot of Texas A&M at all this year. That I didn't really know how they played, but I didn't expect that they would be making shots at such an alarmingly low rate.
Yeah.
And are the best offensive rebounding team in the country. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Which, hand in hand, I guess, if you're missing a lot of shots, then you get a lot of opportunities.
But the thing is, they're missing so many shots that you wouldn't expect them to be able to retain that percentage. 43%, like that's a ridiculous number. We were talking about Florida in the same context last week, that they're at about 40%. 40, I mean, that's nearly half of their shots, and they're missing so many shots. Like this is a lot of offensive rebounds. I'm curious to see where their players stand individually in offensive rebound percentage.
Yeah, I mean, and to put up 85 points on Tennessee still with the inability to make shots. Tennessee's one of the best defensive teams in the country.
Mm-hmm.
All right, anything else on Tennessee, Texas A&M? All right, we'll move on to the top two teams in the country, UConn and Purdue. They both played teams that will not be making the tournament this weekend, Georgetown and Indiana, but they steamrolled them both, and they are easily, or I would think easily, the two best teams in the country right now. Number 1 and number 2 in the AP poll for the last few weeks, and haven't really played many close calls either.
Yeah, it's pick your choice between, UConn and Purdue. They're both kind of set up differently, though. I think Purdue runs a very play style where Matt Painter says, I want you here, I want you here. We're going to run this set every time down the floor, get Zach Edey the ball, let them play off of double teams and stuff like that. Versus UConn is very free flowing. They have multiple guards averaging double digits. And UConn, you could very possibly, teams don't go back to back in March Madness. That just doesn't happen, whether that's because you get a big head or it's just extremely hard to repeat. But they look like the best team in the country right now. They have 3 ranked games left. 2 of them are against Marquette. But you could see UConn coming into March Madness with only 2 losses in a year that they just won the national championship.
Yeah. No, I think, I will cede that Purdue is one of the best teams in the country. I don't think they're the second best team in the country. As long as Indiana State keeps winning,
All right, come on.
There's nothing Purdue does better than Indiana State, other than most things. I try every week or every conversation. It could be about lunch, and I'll try to find a way that Purdue is falling short in a given year, but there's just nothing. They're so good, and the guard stepping up has been huge for them. Edey draws so much attention inside that there's always an opportunity to kick the ball out if he can't find a way to get his elbow into a defending player's spine. Then he's got guys who can shoot the ball at an exceptionally high rate. Braden Smith is one of the best 3-point shooters in the country right now as far as effective 3-point percentage. Obviously, he's not going to catch Reed Sheppard, but block percentage, they're just not getting blocked. They're only getting blocked on about 6% of their shots. That's less than half of what Texas A&M is getting blocked, which is crazy. 3-point percentage is 5th. As a team who doesn't really need to take a ton of threes, they still take a lot of threes, and they hit a lot of threes. It's maddening to watch because I don't like them, primarily because of Matt Painter. I don't like Matt Painter. Excellent coach. I'm fine saying that. But UConn's, I don't know if UConn could hang with Purdue if they played today.
Really?
Which I hate to say. I really hate that. I just think Braden Smith is playing some of the best basketball in the country right now. And when he's doing that, and then you've got role players like, obviously, Lawyer. And Mason Gillis, by the way, I'm pretty sure, unless it's changed since last week, has the highest offensive rating of any individual player in the country. Which is it's kind of bizarre to say. I'm looking at it. No, he fell back to 4th. His offensive rating is 4th in the country, which is kind of stupid. When he's on the court, they're just playing well, because I don't feel like he generally has a big impact on the game. But his 3-point percentage, he's 9th in the nation. How weird is that?
I had no idea he was having that good of a season.
Me either. Kind of crazy.
And 60% from 2, 48% from 3, 87% from the line. He knocked down 2 threes on Saturday, and one of the things that stood out in that game again on Saturday against Indiana, it seemed like Purdue was getting open shots on every single possession, and they were missing shots that you would think Purdue would typically make. Edey was under 50% from the floor. They were missing a few open threes from high-quality shooters, especially in the first half, and they still walloped Indiana by 20.
Yeah, well, Indiana shouldn't be the litmus test.
Well, no, they shouldn't be, but still, you beat your rival by 20 points, and you didn't even shoot that well offensively.
And the Big Ten shouldn't be the litmus test in general, because it's not a good, but Purdue's out-of-conference schedule was ridiculous. I think at one point in the season, they were number 1 in strength of schedule. Mm-hmm. They have wins over Tennessee, Marquette, Alabama, Arizona. And now here that they're in Big Ten play, they have 1 real game left. They're at Illinois late in the year. But that's it. They're not going to lose to Minnesota. They're not going to lose to Ohio State. They're probably not going to lose that last one against Wisconsin at Mackey, the way Wisconsin's been struggling. So, I mean, you can pick your choice between UConn and Purdue. UConn has a little bit harder schedule, but they're both going to get 1 seeds. And if they match up in the national championship, I think it'd be a great game.
Yeah, it would be. And UConn does play Marquette this weekend, probably going to be the game of the weekend. Marquette's won 7 straight games. That will be a very, very interesting game on Saturday. We're going to move on to our next segment. We're going to do Flop of the Week and Fab of the Week. We're going to start with Flop of the Week, a team or player that, well, flopped, didn't perform up to expectations. Cole, take it away.
Yeah, I did too. I did Tennessee and Auburn, both in the SEC. Both had really good wins recently. Auburn beats Alabama. Tennessee went on the road and got Kentucky. And then they follow that up with terrible losses the next few days. I don't know what the recipe is this year with top teams losing, but I mean, Tennessee got blown out by Texas A&M, and then Auburn gets blown out by Florida. 2 teams that aren't bad, but if you're competing for a national championship, you're not losing conference games by 20 points.
Yeah, it seems like this is happening all the time in the SEC. Someone gets a huge win during the middle of the week and then stumbles on the weekend, or you get blown out on a Wednesday and then blow out one of the best teams on a Saturday. The SEC doesn't seem to be able to find any consistency so far this year. Elias.
Can Indiana be a flop of the week? I don't know if they can because nobody expected them to win, but I mean, they didn't cover, so they performed worse than expected. I don't know if they can.
Well, they did come back down 18 against Ohio State.
They did. That's fair. I keep forgetting that game happened because I'm so invested in how poorly they played against Purdue. I don't know if this is controversial because they won their last game, but I'll say, and this hurts, but North Carolina is probably my flop of the week because they just barely eked out a win against Miami. And Miami's decent, but that's a game that North Carolina should win handily, even on the road. But the loss to Clemson last week, really concerning for me because Clemson, actually, I guess Clemson's pretty good this week, or this year, excuse me. But I don't know, as North Carolina, somebody that I really think has the tools to win a national championship, those are the kind of games that I just think you can't lose. Clemson at home never should have been a loss. It probably shouldn't have been close, and to only put up 80 and 75 respectively in your last 2 games, I don't like that from a team that I think can score in bunches with guys like R.J. Davis, Cormac Ryan, Paxton Wojcik, and Baycott. Like that's a lineup that should just be conducive to success in the same way that Purdue and UConn are built. Like they're just solid, and so to see sort of these cracks in the foundation of UNC is pretty concerning for somebody who thinks that they can do a lot of really good things in March.
Yeah, the biggest flop of it all is you beat Duke at the Smith Center on Saturday, and then you turn around still at the Smith Center and lose at home to Clemson on, I think, what was that, Tuesday? It was just in it. They were like never in it either. Clemson, I don't remember how many of their first shots they made, but they came out, hit like 4 or 5, 6 of their, they were like 4 for 4, 5 for 5, 6 for 6, jumping out of the gate. North Carolina was playing behind the whole game and could just never come back. And for my flop of the week, I'm going Wisconsin. They've lost 4 straight, lost 2 the previous week at Nebraska, at home against Purdue. Those are very excusable losses. The ones this week, not excusable. At Michigan, I don't really care that it's a conference road game. Michigan might, or outside of like maybe DePaul, Michigan might be the most dysfunctional Power 6 program right now. You just cannot be losing games at the Chrysler Center or to Michigan at all this season. And then Rutgers, actually maybe playing a little bit better basketball right now. They've won their last 3. The RAC is still a tough place to play, but it's the way that they lost double digits. They were down big the whole game, and we might just have to recalibrate our expectations of Wisconsin. They were like a projected 2 seed the last couple weeks, but now lost 4 straight. Like, are they even going to be a top 4 or 5 seed in the tournament now?
Probably not. I mean, quite frankly, and I haven't looked at their upcoming schedule, which I'll do right now. But I mean, so yeah, they've lost 4 in a row, and they still have to play Purdue again. They still get Illinois again. So at Iowa, never an easy place to play. So yeah, Wisconsin could very easily fall outside the top 25 with, another 1 in 1 week. And then you start thinking about a 5, 6 seed in the tournament. I wanted to ask you guys, not to take up too much time. So UConn and Purdue are 1 seeds, hands down. They could probably lose the rest of their games and still be 1 seeds. Who are your guys' other?
Maybe not that much, but they're not going to lose the rest of the games.
Who are your guys' other 2 1 seeds?
Houston's won too many games and are too solid of a regular season team to fall out of that one line. I saw on Bracket Matrix, refreshed on Saturday, Arizona replaced UNC at that one line. I really don't think Arizona is that good.
That's
They
what
keep
I saw as
stumbling in
well.
the
and I
Pac-12.
was-
I mean, they play fast. They have like a good offense, but they're so streaky. I really don't think. Well, maybe they get a 1 seed. I don't think they're a legitimate threat to win the national championship. But my other 1 seed, I think it's going to be UNC. I think they make enough, I think they win enough games throughout the rest of the ACC to snag that 1 seed.
Yeah, I saw Arizona too, and I mean UNC was my pick for the past couple of weeks, but now that Arizona's been hot, I've seen they've jumped up way up in the metrics. I mean, they were right behind like Houston, Purdue early. So yeah, it'll be interesting. The thing I always look at is region wise. I mean, UConn's going to want the East, and Purdue's going to want the Midwest. UNC is a team who wants the South. Arizona is a team who wants the West.
Mhm.
So you look at that, and then Houston. Where do they fit in? So yeah, it's whoever gets that 4 seed and has to travel somewhere that they don't want to could be a big thing going into the tournament.
Elias, we'll stay on the tangent. Who do you think gets the last 4 or the fourth 1 seed?
Took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, for me, it has to be Houston as of right now. And then
Wait, as the fourth one?
no, as the third.
Oh, as the third.
As
Got
the
it, got
third.
it.
Yeah, Houston, in my opinion, should be just as sure right now as Purdue and UConn. They haven't really stumbled. 3 reasonably excusable losses, and then I don't know. You're right. It is a big toss-up for the rest of them. You got a bunch of 5 and 6 loss teams. 7 loss Alabama's probably out of it unless the other teams stumble. It'd be really weird if Iowa State snuck in there, but I'll probably roll with North Carolina. There's too much experience and talent on that team to lose any more games that they shouldn't. So yeah, I think North Carolina probably gets the 4th 1 seed.
Elias, I'll pass it back to you in just a second. We're going Fab of the Week now. Who was a player or team that stood out to you in the last 7 days?
Well, I'm going to go for a player and a team, and it just I'm going to beat their drum to death this year, but it has to be Indiana State, ranked for the first time since Larry Bird. First time since there's nothing wrong with this team other than what's wrong with this team, which is they get blocked a lot and they don't block.
What is that? What does that mean?
There's nothing wrong with them other than what's wrong with them. I think it's pretty clear. There's stuff that's wrong with them, but if you disregard it, nothing wrong.
Well, there's a lot of things wrong with like Indiana basketball this year, but if you
disregard it,
nothing's wrong.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting
that
at.
logic seems a little flawed.
It was primarily intended to be a joke, but I'm really glad we've diagnosed it a bit more. The next time I make a joke, most laugh. Okay.
I won't question it next time.
So there's nothing wrong with this team. Say it with me. Apart from
what's wrong with this team.
There you go.
I understand much more now.
And what's wrong with this team is they get blocked on about 12% of their shots. Yes, they're getting blocked on about 12% of their shots, which is 345th in the country, but they are one of the shortest teams in the country, so that's all right. And then adversely, they're only blocking a little bit under 5% of shots. So their defense in there in the sense that they don't block shots, and their offense in there in the sense that they get blocked. But they also take like an unholy number of threes, which is so cool to me. Like style, their 3 points attempted for field goals attempted, 3rd in the nation. They're taking more threes than they're taking 2s, which is kind of ridiculous in terms of just like recent college basketball metrics. 3 points attempted for field goals attempted is about 50.3% for Indiana State. So their point distribution is pretty much right down the middle. It's 40% threes, 41.7% twos, and then the rest comes from free throws, which is it's just crazy that they're able to maintain this success taking so many threes, due in part to the fact that they're 9th in the country in 3-point percentage, 2nd in the country in 2-point percentage, and 10th in the country in free throw percentage. Only team in the nation that is top 10 in all 3 of those statistics. Like I said, just got ranked. They're number 1 in effective field goal percentage. 3 players now in the top 25 in true shooting percentage. Only team in the country that has all 3 of those, and 2 in the top 7. 2 in the top 7. I mean, there's no flaws with this team. I've said it once and I'll say it again. James Naismith would be just looking upon this team and crying tears of joy at seeing the way they play basketball. They come down the court and every one of their 5 guys has the chance to score. They've got option A, B, C, D, E, every offensive possession. And it is cool to watch. And I think, I don't know, I don't want to say I hope they start losing games, because if they start losing games, I can make a lot of money off of them in March because people are going to think that they're going to flop. But when you're on a short week and like you don't have a ton of time to prep for a team, it's going to be teams like Indiana State that can just hit shots from anywhere on the court that are going to win you games because they're going to be able to hit their shots no matter what. And the defensive scheming isn't a huge part of March. It's just like, who's going to go out there and hit more shots? I guess that's kind of redundant because that's every college basketball game is who's going to hit more shots. But who can do it consistently in March? Indiana State's an Elite Eight team.
Elite Eight?
You're right. That's jumping the gun. They're a Final Four team.
And you still never you haven't went to a game yet this season.
No, I haven't. That's because they've actually
you have to go to see Indiana State in person.
I really need to get to Terre Haute. It's just they've
ticket
started
prices might be up a little bit.
They
this
are.
year.
They've started actually selling tickets. Yeah,
Where are
because
they
student
now?
tickets all used to be free. That you're looking at like $25-$30.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, but I've also got to drive to Terre Haute. Nobody wants to go to Terre Haute.
Well, you do to watch Indiana State basketball.
I'd go anywhere to watch Indiana State basketball, actually.
Well,
IU needs to schedule a game against.
Well, I was going to say that would be very unlucky for the Hoosiers. I talked about that last week with Indiana State. I think they'll schedule a lot of really good teams next year and beat a lot of really good teams next year.
Indiana State.
I don't
Yes.
think any good teams are going to want to play Indiana State. I think they're going to run into like a scheduling like nightmare where they're just going to have to play like all bye
Yeah.
games or something like that because no one's going to want to play them.
Mhm. However, I mean, as we've seen with like a lot of these mid-major teams that have successful years, there are going to be some players that hit the portal. Also, I think some of their guards are getting kind of old. I think Isaiah Swope might be nearing. No, Isaiah Swope's a junior. Robbie Avila is somebody who might be gone. He's somebody I would keep my eye on to hit the portal because, I mean, he's arguably the best player on that team. And I don't know. I could see several of their players transferring to a Power 5 school. I mean, Swope, Conwell, Jason Kent, who, by the way, is third in true shooting percentage in the nation, and at the same time, sixth in effective field goal percentage. That's crazy. He's definitely somebody who could hit the portal.
All right.
Also, third in 2-point percentage. Like, this guy's crazy.
All right, enough on our Indiana State segment of the week. Cole, your fab of the week.
Well, I wanted to give a shout out to UConn and Purdue again for going 1-2. We've already talked about it. Teams behind them just continue to stumble, and they've been number 1 and 2 for weeks. I wanted to go a little bit different direction and look at the Auburn fans. I don't know if you guys watched that game Wednesday night. The atmosphere was crazy. The place was packed, hours before tip-off. They had, every time Auburn went on a run, they would shut the lights off and have spotlights going around during the timeouts and stuff. That atmosphere was one of the best I'd seen this year.
Auburn, sneaky, like top 10, like coolest or at least best environments in college basketball. And that's like flipped around so quickly too. It's crazy how these SEC football schools or like baseball schools, whatever you want to toss them into, have invested in college basketball and have like really, really good home environments too.
Yeah, the Auburn-Alabama rivalry, being from football for generations, has really picked up in basketball. That's a huge credit to Nate Oates and Bruce Pearl, whether you like them as human beings or how they run their program. They put very good basketball teams on the floor these past few years. And you're talking about if Auburn can continue to make deep runs in March, you're talking about a new blood kind of, blue blood stance that we've seen UConn do the past, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. And for my fab of the week, I'm going to go player as well. Well, I guess Elias started talking about some individual players. He was Indiana State as a whole, I think. But I'm going to go with Tyler Kolek. He's helped Marquette win 7 straight games. And in that 7 straight game win streak, he's been an absolute tear. He's averaging 19 points, 10 assists, shooting 47% from 3. And he struggled a little bit at the beginning of the Big East schedule. Marquette as a whole did as well. They started 2-3, but like I said, on a roll. And he was excellent last week as well, highlighted by that win against St. John's. He had 27 points in 13 assists and 5 made threes. Tyler Kolek, the Big East Player of the Year last year, rounding into form here as we were approaching mid-February, and Marquette rounding into form as well.
Yeah, Marquette's been extremely hot lately, and that's another team that has experience playing in the tournament like they did last year, has experience being a high seed like they were last year, and a team that isn't very far from a 1 seed. As we were discussing who's going to be that 4th 1 seed, they're right on that 1-2 line right now.
Yeah, they could make a run for it. I think they probably have to beat UConn this Saturday and maybe make a deep run in the Big East tournament. But the Big East could get multiple 1 seeds this year.
That would be that. The Big East getting 2 1 seeds would maybe solidify an argument between the Big East and the Big 12 of how good the Big 12's been this year, because Kansas is probably not going to get a 1 seed. Houston's going to be the only one from the Big 12. It's normally Kansas, but the Big 12 has been the best conference in basketball the past few years, and the Big East is just as good this year, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is. And they got a lot of teams on the bubble as well. And speaking of the bubble, I didn't even mean to make such a clean
quite a good
transition right there. But
Well, it's a good thing you interrupted it to congratulate yourself.
thank you, Elias. Thank you. New segment this week. We're going to make a case for a bubble team to either be in or out. We're getting to that point of the season where we're watching the bubble, looking at bracketologies mid-February. We can start talking about bubble teams now. Cole, we'll start with you.
Yeah, speaking of Big East teams on the bubble, excuse me, Seton Hall, one of the only two teams this year to beat UConn. They're listed as last four in, but they're 67 in the net, which is lower than Providence, Xavier, and Nova, but they're projected in over Seton Hall. So I think Seton Hall has a chance to have some good wins down the stretch and just blow right into the tournament. They don't need to win the conference tournament. I think they win most of their games here coming up, they'll be in. They're 4-4 in quad one, which is better than a ton of teams we've seen who just have one or two great wins.
Elias?
Can I get Grand Canyon?
Yeah, let's hear about Grand Canyon. What's their at large? What is their at large case?
Well, I just feel like, I don't know, maybe it's the same thing as Florida State in the national champ or in the CFP. I just feel like they kind of deserve to be in. It's not that they're doing anything exceptionally well. They're just beating the teams in front of them. And one of my biggest gripes with college sports and the whole strength of schedule argument is that you can only beat the teams that you schedule. Like Grand Canyon, sorry, I'm just Indiana State on the brain. Grand Canyon just hasn't had the opportunity to play really any quad one games. They lost to South Carolina by 7 in a semi-home game early on in the season, and then got a bad looking loss to Seattle back in January. But I mean, they just kind of win their games. There's offensive rebound percentage is about 35, which is again ridiculously high. It's about 27th in the country, and they don't allow. They've got a pretty suffocating defense. They don't allow opposing teams to shoot very well. They're top 50 in just about every major defensive category. That's effective field goal percentage. They're holding opposing teams to just under 47. Turnover percentage, they're forcing turnovers at about a 20% rate, which is kind of bizarre for such a small team. But Grand Canyon's somebody I definitely think deserves a shot. I mean, they're probably going to win out in the conference, and if they don't win out, I think they would still deserve a spot.
If they get 2 losses from here on out, that'd be 1 regular season loss, 1 conference tournament loss. Do you think they make it in?
No.
So the only game they can lose in the conference tournament, you think they can maybe sneak in?
I think so. I think they should.
I think they should too. I mean, 1-1 in quad one games right now. The big one is that home win against San Diego State earlier this year. 2-1 in quad 2, but it's the 18 quad 3 and quad 4 games when you're playing in a mid to low major conference. It's just so hard to, schedule teams that want to play you in the non-conference, then also try and avoid those quad 3, quad 4 losses, which they have so far this season.
Yeah. It's just, no, I don't know if they get in if they lose any more regular season games, just because, you look at these and like you said, they're in a really tough spot because a win is not a good win, but a loss is a horrible loss when you're in one of these mid-major conferences and you feel like you might be on the outside looking into the March Madness of the NCAA tournament.
All right, for mine, I'm going to go with Butler. I'm going to argue for Butler's case to be in. Right now, they were on Saturday's bracket matrix. They were in the last 4 buys. They were in 93 out of the 101 brackets that bracket matrix had. Butler's 3-7 in quad 1 and has a quad 3 loss. That isn't great. 3-7 is not a great record in quad 1, but they are 4-0 in quad 2. They are the only team to win at Marquette this season, who we were just talking about as a potential 1 seed. And they're one of 2 teams to win at Creighton, along with Villanova. And the crazy thing is, I saw this on Twitter last week after, I think, maybe a Kentucky loss or a Butler win. I can't remember which one it was. It was like a blind resume thing. Butler has more quad 1 wins and more quad 2 wins as Kentucky, and Kentucky has that quad 3 loss as well. And the Wildcats are a team we've been talking about is they're top 10 in the AP poll last week and safely in the tournament, but yet Butler is on the bubble. I think Butler should get in easily. Any opposition?
But I don't have an opposition. I watched Butler play against Creighton, and a huge win. To go shot for shot, kind of like how we talked about Gonzaga going shot for shot with Kentucky down the stretch last week. I mean, I watched them play Creighton, and they went shot for shot with Creighton, which is extremely difficult to do.
All right, we'll move on to our next segment. Before we wrap up with Shot Clock, we're going to do our mid-major spotlight. This might be a little bit quicker this week. There's 3 teams in all of college basketball right now that are undefeated in conference play. We're all going to take one of those teams and kind of give them the spotlight for a little bit. Elias, we'll start with you. St. Mary's Gales in the West Coast Conference.
Dude, there were, several weeks in a row. I guess, no, there was a 4 or 5 day. No, there was an 8-day break. No, there was a 3-day break in November, December where St. Mary's actually was at 500 or below. Because, they were losing a lot of games. Early loss to Weber State at home. Gosh, a team of 9 of me is beating Weber State at home if I have a good crowd.
I disagree.
All right, that's fine. You can disagree. People are allowed to be wrong. And then a neutral site loss, 25 to San Diego State, followed up by a 15-point neutral site loss to Xavier. You would have been very fair to say on November 19th that St. Mary's was not going to make the tournament, but they have caught fire since December. They lost to Boise State the first day of December, and since then, 16-1. 16-1 in their last 17 with some good wins too. Santa Clara is an underrated win because Santa Clara beat Gonzaga, that's a good win. They beat San Francisco. They beat Gonzaga. They beat Santa Clara again. Gosh, Santa Clara, kind of decent. Beat UNLV, beat Colorado State. They've got good wins. They are going to have to play San Francisco again. They are going to have to play Gonzaga again. But, 2-point percentage or opposing 2-point percentage, they're holding teams to just under 43%, which is ridiculous. They're third in the nation in that category. And then overall effective field goal percentage, they're holding teams to about 44, which is, again, third in the country. Offensive rebound rate, just under 40. That's sixth. They're doing a lot right. So they don't shoot the ball exceptionally well, but they play a good defensive brand of basketball that they get stops. And then because they're rebounding the ball so well offensively, it doesn't matter that they're missing shots because they're getting so many extra attempts, which is a recipe for success now, but they're not a team I would expect to do much in March unless they can get their offensive game figured out.
Yeah, that's the thing with St. Mary's. They've been good for so long, but they just struggle so much in March Madness. And I'm not going to lie, I wrote them off in November when they kept losing games in the non-conference.
As you should.
They have 100% proved me wrong. All right, for my team, I got Yale. They're currently 7-0 in Ivy League play. And what's crazy is they could potentially be the third best team in that conference, even though they're still undefeated, with Princeton and Cornell also having great seasons. And they've actually, surprisingly, Yale is lower in KenPom than they were in the preseason. They're in the 80s now. They were in the low 70s at the start of the season. They had a pretty rough non-conference season, but undefeated in the Ivy League. They have played against Princeton and Cornell at home, so they still have to travel to both of those places. So I don't know if they'll end up winning the league, but hats off to them, still undefeated in conference play in mid-February.
Yeah, Yale's good, and so is Princeton. I watched that Princeton versus Yale game. The Ivy League is a very good league this year, actually.
It is. And Cole, yours?
Yeah, well, I had Grand Canyon, which we've already discussed.
Oh, my bad.
1 conference loss, 1-1 in quad 1, 2-1 in quad 2, no bad losses. So I'll pivot over to Vermont, another team with only 1 conference loss. Made the tournament last year, ran into Marquette in the first round and lost, but they should make the tournament again this year. I think they'll win the America East pretty easily.
There's our mid-major spotlight of the week. Now we're going to move on to one of my favorite segments of the show, the Shot Clock segment. 30 seconds to make your case or your rant or whatever you'd like to get off your chest. You got 30 seconds, the same amount of seconds as a shot clock in college basketball. Who wants to go first?
I'm ready.
All right. Let me pull up my stop clock or my stopwatch right here. All right. And the shot clock has begun.
My rant is with Rodney Terry in the horns down debacle that has happened the last few weeks. Why is he upset about people doing horns down? This is college basketball. It's great because of the students. It's great because of the atmosphere. He was mad because they were jumping around and celebrating a win. Then they play Baylor and win on a last second shot, and he's jumping around and celebrating a win. College basketball is awesome because of the students. Let them wear horns down. Let them do horns down. Let the players do it. If you don't want them to do it, win on the court. You're at Texas. You have as much money as anybody.
Beautiful. 29 seconds, just under the buzzer. And it's wild. I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, shifting the BYU kids out of their student section for having horns down across their chest. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, is what makes college basketball great.
And the comment section is always like, just wait till they get to the SEC. Every
Yeah,
single
it's-
time. All right, Elias, shot clock. You ready?
Sure.
All right, shot clock has begun.
All right. My rant is with the fans that keep saying that Mike Woodson is a good recruiter, because Mike Woodson can recruit top tier players. I mean, we're looking at the guys that he brought in this year. You've got Khalil Ware, former 5-star, Mackenzie Mbako, McDonald's All-American. He was responsible for bringing in Malik Renew. But are you really a good recruiter if you're just recruiting good players? I don't think so, because you look at a guy like Matt Painter, who's recruiting 3 stars, but he's recruiting a good team, guys that can play together, plug and play guys for the system that he's had for years. Woodson's not doing that.
Ooh. The referee might have granted you an extra half a second there.
That's all right.
All right, maybe you got an offensive rebound in that possession or something like that.
Yeah, which would be more than Khalil Ware has on the season.
All right, so my shot clock, I'm going to try and keep this as fast as possible. I did practice it before, and I was like right at 30 seconds, so we'll see what I can do here. All right. Shot clock has started. I'm going to talk about conference challenges. The MAC Sunbelt Challenge was this weekend. Sunbelt dominated. They won 10-2. They actually did a home and home where they switched opponents as well. They did it earlier this season. MAC won that one 7-5. But this is about the conference challenges as a whole. I think every conference needs a conference challenge. You can switch it around each year. The Big Ten currently has none. They lost the Gavitt Games, lost the Big Ten ACC Challenge, and we just need these for better non-conference games and play them at campus sites as well. No more neutral sites.
Wow.
And there we are.
Perfect.
I tried to rattle that off as fast as possible.
Something interesting. I'm looking at Indiana basketball's metrics right now, and just something that is sticking out is ridiculously frustrating. Indiana's most used lineup over the last 5 games: Gabe Cupps, Trey Galloway, Mackenzie Mbako, Malik Renew, Khalil Ware. Gabe Cupps getting about 46% of the point guard minutes over the last 5 games. Yet Ken Palm labels him as nearly invisible because he's being used on under 12% of possessions. What is he doing? I don't know. It's interesting to me that somebody is garnering so many minutes on the floor and just having little to no impact at all on the game, which to me comes from coaching. I don't know. I was just looking at that, and that's an interesting stat.
I would use the term developer when I'm talking about Matt Painter. I would say his system is very good. He's a very good developer. I think Woodson is a good recruiter in terms of talent. Or Indiana basketball in general is a good recruiter of talent. I think Woodson is a great recruiter. Painter is a great developer of his system.
I feel like your development can stem from how well you recruit. So I think if he's not developing well, it's because he's not recruiting players that he can develop.
That could be true. Talent alone.
Yeah.
Those are fair points. And that's going to be the end of our episode. We got on a little bit of tangent on Purdue IU rivalry there at the end. But thank you very much for listening. And we'll catch you on Wednesday for the Women's Wednesday episode of the week.